When billionaire CEO Ethan Morrison desperately needed a date for the most important business deal of his life, he made an unexpected choice that changed everything. Gabriella Santos had been cleaning his office for 3 years, invisible to the powerful world around her. But when a $50 million deal hung in the balance, he saw something in her that no one else had noticed. Love, heartbreak, and destiny collide in tonight's story. Every moment will pull at your heart. Every twist will leave you breathless. Tell us where you're watching from, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who believes in love. Ready to feel every emotion? Let's start. Asterisk, the blood on Gabriella's knuckles had barely dried when she pushed her cleaning cart into the executive corridor of Morrison Industries. The antiseptic smell of the marble floors mixed with the metallic taste still lingering in her mouth from the fight 3 hours earlier. She pressed the sleeves of her uniform down, making sure the bruises on her wrists remained hidden. At 26, Gabriella Santos had perfected the art of invisibility. For 3 years, she had moved through these pristine hallways like a ghost, collecting secrets that could topple empires while scrubbing away the evidence of power's cruelty. The executives saw a Maid. They never saw the daughter of a cartel enforcer who had learned to read people's weaknesses before she could read books. Today felt different. The tension in the building was thick enough to cut, and Gabriella's instincts, honed by years of survival, were screaming warnings. Several executives rushed past her with pale faces and trembling hands. Whatever was happening on the top floor, it was bad enough to make grown men sweat through their $1,000 suits. The heavy wooden doors of the CEO's office vibrated. With raised voices as she approached, Gabriella knocked softly and entered, her trained eyes immediately cataloging every detail. Ethan Morrison stood behind his desk like a caged predator, his usually perfect composure cracked wide open. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his dark hair disheveled, and there was something in his green eyes that Gabriella recognized all too well: desperation. "Oh, Father, I understand the importance of the Yamamoto deal," Ethan was saying into his phone, his voice barely controlled. "But I cannot produce a girlfriend out of thin air. Yes, I know they value family stability. Yes, I know it's worth $50 million. Gabriella began cleaning, her movements automatic, while her mind processed what she was hearing. The Yamamoto family were more than just traditional investors. She knew that name from her father's old contacts, knew they had ties that ran deeper and darker than legitimate business. If Ethan Morrison was dealing with them, he was playing a game that could get him killed. "I don't care what you have to do," came the voice of Richard Morrison through the speaker. "Find someone respectable. Someone who can play the part. This deal cannot fall through because of your personal life." Ethan ended the call and sank into his chair, holding his head in his hands. For a moment, he looked exactly like what he was, a man drowning under the weight of expectations he could never escape. Gabriella continued dusting, moving closer to his desk, when she accidentally knocked over a picture frame. They both reached for it at the same time. Their hands touched, and something electric shot through her system. For a heartbeat, their eyes met, and Gabriella saw something in his gaze that made her pulse quicken. Recognition, not of her face, but of her pain. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison," she said softly. "It's fine," he replied, but his hand lingered on. "The frame, you're Gabriella, right? You've been working here for a while." She nodded, surprised he knew her name. Most of the executives never bothered to learn it. Ethan stood slowly, studying her face with new intensity. "Gabriella, can I ask you something?" Her heart began to race. In her experience, when powerful men started asking questions, people ended up dead. "Yes, sir. Do you have plans tonight?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She thought of the text message on her phone, the one that had brought her to that warehouse fight this morning, the one that reminded her that her father's debts never died, even when he did. "I usually work late, then go home to my mother," she said carefully. "What if I told you I had a proposition, a business proposition?" Gabriella's blood turned to ice. She had heard those words before, in her father's voice, right before he sold her childhood to pay for his mistakes. "Mr. Morrison, I don't think." "Nothing like that," Ethan said quickly. "I need someone to accompany me to a business function tonight." very important investors. You would be compensated generously. She stared at him, her mind racing. This was either the best opportunity she'd ever been offered, or the worst trap she'd ever walked into. I don't understand. Ethan moved closer, and she could smell his cologne mixed with something else. Fear. I need a date for tonight's gala. Someone who can convince the Yamamoto family that I'm stable, committed, trustworthy. His voice dropped lower. Someone they won't suspect of having an agenda. Gabriella's blood went cold. He knew. Somehow this man knew exactly what she was, when he was offering her a chance to get close to the very people she'd been ordered. To watch, why me? She whispered.
Ow.
Ethan's smile was sharp as a blade. Because, Gabriella Santos, I think we both know you're not really a maid. And tonight, I need someone dangerous enough to help me survive what's coming. 3 hours later, Gabriella stood in front of the mirror in Ethan's penthouse, barely recognizing herself. The black evening gown hugged her curves like liquid shadow, and the diamonds at her throat caught the light with every breath. Professional stylists had transformed her from invisible maid to stunning socialite, but the weight of the concealed knife strapped to her thigh reminded her who she really was. Clean up nicely, Ethan said from the doorway, adjusting his bow tie. He had changed into a tuxedo that probably cost more than she made in a year, but Gabriella could see the tension in his shoulders. The way his fingers trembled slightly as he smoothed his hair. So do you, she replied, meeting his eyes in the mirror, though you still look like a man walking to his execution. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Maybe I am. He moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Before we do this, I need to know something. Who sent you? Gabriella turned to face him, her heart hammering against her ribs. What do you mean? Don't play games with me, Gabriella? I've been watching you for months. The way you move, the way you listen, the scars on your hands that didn't come from cleaning supplies. His green eyes bored into hers. You're not here by accident. For a moment, she considered lying. But something in his voice, a raw honesty that matched her own desperation, made her choose truth instead. Miguel Santos was my father. He owed the wrong people money when he died. Now that debt is mine. Ethan's face went white. Miguel Santos. Jesus Christ. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying the perfect styling. He was the enforcer who worked for the Delgado cartel. Others, Gabriella said quietly, including some of your business partners' rivals, and they sent you to spy on me, to watch, to report, to wait for orders. She lifted her chin defiantly. But I've been thinking about disappearing instead. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, then did something she didn't expect. He laughed, a sound full of dark amusement. God, we're a pair, aren't we? The corrupt CEO and the cartel spy, pretending to be the perfect couple? Is that what you are? Corrupt? His smile faded. Let's just say the Morrison family fortune didn't come from playing by the rules in tonight's deal. It's not just about business partnerships. The Yamamoto family is laundering money through our construction projects. If this goes wrong, we're all dead. The limo ride to the gala was tense with unspoken truths. Gabriella sat beside Ethan, their thighs touching, electric current sparking between them despite the danger they were walking into. Or maybe because of it. Tell me about them, she said quietly. What should I expect? Kenji Yamamoto is old school, traditional. He believes in honor, family, respect. His son Hiroshi is different, smarter, more suspicious. He'll be watching us for cracks in our story. Ethan's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with hers. We need to sell this completely. No hesitation, no uncertainty.
How long have
we been together? She asked, surprised by how natural his touch felt. 6 months. We met at a charity event. You work in art restoration, which explains your intelligence and sophistication. We're deeply in love, but taking things slow because of my family's public profile. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly that Gabriella wondered how many others he'd told. And after tonight? Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. After tonight, you disappear if you want to. I'll pay your father's debt, Give you enough money to start over anywhere you choose. His voice dropped to a whisper. Or you stay, and we figure out how to survive this together. The ballroom of the Meridian Hotel was a glittering palace of crystal and gold, filled with the city's most powerful and dangerous people. Gabriella recognized several faces from her father's old photographs.
Ow.
Men who smiled at cameras while ordering executions over breakfast. Kenji Yamamoto was exactly as Ethan had described. Distinguished, formal, with eyes that missed nothing. His son Hiroshi stood beside him, younger, but somehow more menacing, like a blade hidden in silk. Morrison-san, Kenji said, bowing slightly. Billy, thank you for hosting us tonight. The honor is mine, Ethan replied, his arms sliding around Gabriella's waist. I'd like you to meet Gabriella Santos, my girlfriend. Gabriella smiled and extended her hand, letting her natural accent color her words. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Ethan has told me so much about your partnership. For the next hour, they played their parts perfectly. Gabriella laughed at appropriate moments, touched Ethan's arm with convincing affection, and fielded questions about their relationship with practiced ease. But she could feel Hiroshi's eyes on her, calculating, suspicious. Then, during a quiet moment when Kenji was speaking with other investors, Hiroshi moved closer to her. Santos is an interesting name, he said quietly, his English perfect, despite the slight accent. I knew a Miguel Santos once. Dangerous man, dead now, I believe. Gabriella's blood turned to ice, but she kept her smile steady. It's a common name indeed. Hiroshi's smile was a razor sharp. Though I wonder what his daughter would be doing at a function like this, especially when she should be paying her father's debts. The ballroom seemed to tilt around her. This wasn't random suspicion. Hiroshi knew exactly who she was. Meant the trap they'd walked into was deeper than either of them had realized. Asterisk. Gabriella's training kicked in before conscious thought could interfere. She tilted her head slightly, letting confusion cloud her features while her free hand moved imperceptibly toward the slit in her dress where her knife waited. I'm sorry, I don't understand, she said to Hiroshi, her voice carrying just the right note of bewildered innocence. Debts? Think you might have me confused with someone else. Hiroshi's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. Perhaps. The resemblance is striking. Miguel Santos had very distinctive eyes, dark, intelligent, dangerous when cornered. He leaned closer, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something that made her skin crawl, just like his daughter. Before Gabriella could respond, Ethan appeared at her side, his hand settling possessively on her lower back. Is everything all right? He asked, his tone casual, but his body coiled like a spring. Just getting to know. Your lovely companion better, Hiroshi replied smoothly. We were discussing family history. So fascinating how the past shapes us, don't you think? Ethan's fingers pressed against her spine in warning. Indeed, though I prefer focusing on the future. Speaking of which, has your father had a chance to review the construction contracts? The conversation shifted back to business, but Gabriella could feel the ground shifting beneath her feet. Every instinct screamed that they were walking deeper into a trap, but there was nowhere to run. Not with half the cartel's enemies in this room, all watching, all waiting. She excused herself to the ladies' room, needing space to think, to plan, to figure out how to get them both out alive. The marble bathroom was empty, elegant mirrors reflecting her perfectly crafted disguise back at her. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to really be this woman, to really be loved by someone like Ethan Morrison. The fantasy shattered when she heard footsteps behind her. You've caused quite a stir tonight, a familiar voice said in Spanish. Gabriella spun around to find Carmen Delgado standing in the doorway, resplendent in blood-red silk. Her father's old boss looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago, beautiful, deadly, and utterly without mercy. Carmen, Gabriella breathed. What are you doing here? The question is, what are you doing here, Mia? Carmen moved closer, her heels clicking on the marble like a countdown. Playing dress-up with the Morrison boy instead of paying your family's debts. I'm working. Just like you ordered. Are you? Carmen's smile was razor-sharp. Because, from where I stand, it looks like you're falling for your mark. Very unprofessional, Gabriella. Very stupid. Gabriella's hand inched toward her knife. What do you want? What I've always wanted. Miguel's debt paid in full. $50 million. Or your life. Carmen studied her manicured nails with casual cruelty. Though watching you tonight, I'm thinking there might be a third option, which is Morrison dies tonight. You make it happen, and we call your debt settled. Words hit Gabriella. Like physical blows. No. No. Carmen laughed, the sound like breaking glass. You think you have a choice here? You think this little fantasy you've built tonight is real? He's innocent. He's a Morrison. None of them are innocent. Carmen moved closer, close enough that Gabriella could see the cold calculation in her dark eyes. His family has been laundering cartel money for 3 generations. His grandfather killed my uncle. His father destroyed my brother's businesses. And now, little Ethan is trying to cut us out of the Yamamoto deal. Gabriella's world tilted. That's not true, isn't it? Ask yourself why he chose you tonight, Mia. Out of all the women in this city, why the daughter of Miguel Santos? Why the girl who owes us everything? Carmen's voice dropped to a whisper. Because he knows exactly who you are. And he's using you just like everyone else has. The bathroom door opened, and Ethan appeared, his face tight with concern. Gabriella, are you all right? You've been gone for. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Carmen, his face going white as bone. Carmen Delgado, he said quietly. I should have known you'd be here. Carmen smiled, smooth as silk and twice as deadly. Hello, Ethan. You look surprised to see me. Though I imagine you're more surprised that your little spy hasn't told you who sent her yet. Gabriella watched Ethan's face, saw the exact moment when understanding dawned. The betrayal in his eyes was worse than any physical blow she'd ever taken. You've been working for her, he said quietly. This whole time, Ethan, let me explain. All of it was a lie. His voice was hollow, empty. Every word, every touch, every moment tonight. No, Gabriella said desperately. Tonight was real. What happened between us was real. Carmen laughed again. How sweet, young love blooming over deception and betrayal. Your father would be so proud, Mia. Ethan looked between them, his jaw clenched so tight, Gabriella was afraid it might shatter. What does she want? Your death, Carmen said pleasantly. Though I'm willing to negotiate. $50 million, and you both walk away tonight. Refuse. And neither of you leaves this building alive. Gabriella saw Ethan's hand move toward his jacket pocket and realized with cold horror what he was reaching for. Not a weapon or a phone, but something worse. A detonator. Ethan, don't, she whispered. His smile was sharp as broken glass. Too late, Gabriella. You should have told me the truth. Ethan, what are you doing? Gabriella's voice cracked with terror as she saw his finger hover over the small device. Insurance, Ethan said quietly, his green eyes never leaving Carmen's face. Did you really think I'd walk into this den of wolves without protection? There are enough explosives planted in this building's foundation to level 6 city blocks. Carmen's composed mask slipped for the first time, revealing the predator. Beneath your bluffing. 3 years ago, when I first learned about my family's real business, I started planning for this moment. The moment when everything would come crashing down. His laugh was hollow, broken. I just never imagined I'd care about collateral damage. Gabriella felt the world spinning around her. There are 200 people in that ballroom. 200 of the most corrupt, violent criminals in the city, Ethan corrected. Including the people who killed my sister. The confession hit Gabriella like a physical blow. Your sister? Emma Morrison. She was 19 when she found out about our family's connections. She tried to go to the FBI, tried to make it right. His voice cracked with 5 years of buried pain. Carmen's people made it look like a car accident. Carmen's eyes narrowed dangerously. Your sister was weak, just like you're being now. Maybe, Ethan agreed. But I'm also done pretending to be something I'm not. His finger moved closer too. The button. 30 seconds, Carmen. Take your people and leave, or we all burn together. You'll die too, Gabriella whispered. Ethan's eyes found hers. And in them, she saw something that made her heart break. Love. Real, desperate, doomed love. I've been dead for 5 years, Gabriella. Ever since the night I couldn't save Emma. Tonight was the first time I felt alive again. Carmen raised her hands in apparent surrender, but Gabriella caught the subtle signal she made toward the door. Very well, Morrison, you win this round. She started backing toward the exit, but this isn't over.
Yes.
Ethan said quietly. It is. As soon as Carmen disappeared through the doorway, Gabriella lunged forward, her hands closing over Ethan's wrist. Don't do this. There has to be another way. There isn't. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing over her cheekbone with infinite gentleness. Carmen will never stop coming for you. Yamamoto's will never let me live after tonight. And my father. His smile was bitter as ashes. He'll throw me to the wolves the moment this deal falls through. Then we run. Tonight we take your money and we disappear. With what? Everything I have is tied up in the business. And they'll find us, Gabriella. People like Carmen always do. Through the bathroom walls, they could hear the distant sound of shouting from the ballroom. Someone had noticed Carmen's absence, or maybe the Yamamotos had grown suspicious of their prolonged disappearance. Either way, time was running out. I won't let you do this, Gabriella said fiercely. Not for me. Not for anyone. Himman pulled the fire alarm. Sirens began wailing throughout the building, and within seconds, they could hear the chaos of evacuation beginning in the ballroom. What are you doing? Giving them a chance, she said, then turned back to him with tears streaming down her face. Now give me the detonator, Gabriella. Give it to me. She held out her hand, palm steady, despite the terror coursing through her veins. You said tonight was real? You said what we had was real? If that's true, then trust me. For a long moment, they stared at each other while the building emptied around them. Finally, with infinite reluctance, Ethan placed the device in her palm. What's your plan? He asked. Gabriella looked down at the simple black button that held so much death. Carmen will be watching the exits. She'll have people positioned too. Take us out the moment we leave this building, but she doesn't know about your insurance policy. Understanding dawned in Ethan's eyes. Hey, you want to use the threat of the bombs to negotiate safe passage? No, Gabriella said quietly. I want to detonate them, but the building is evacuating not all of it. She looked up at him, her dark eyes blazing with deadly purpose. Carmen's people will be in the stairwells, the parking garage, anywhere. They can corner us. They won't expect the whole structure to come down. You're talking about murder. I'm talking about survival. She stepped closer to him, close enough to feel his breath on her face. These people killed your sister. They destroyed my father. They've spent years turning us into weapons against each other. How many more innocent people will die if we let them walk away tonight? Ethan was quiet for a long moment, war playing out across his features. If we do this, there's no going back. There was no going back the moment you chose me tonight. Through the walls, they could hear Carmen's voice shouting orders in Spanish. She was positioning her people throughout the building, exactly as Gabriella had predicted. Together, Ethan asked, placing his hand over hers on the detonator. Together, Gabriella confirmed, but as their fingers intertwined over the device, she made a choice that would haunt her forever. With her free hand, she pulled the knife from her thigh and drove it deep into her own abdomen, the blade angling upward toward her heart. Gabriella. Ethan's scream echoed off the marble walls as she collapsed against him, her blood spreading across the white floor like spilled wine. The building is wired to my biometrics, she gasped, her voice growing weaker with each word. When my heart stops, it goes automatically. Carmen's people will have maybe 10 minutes to get clear. Why? The word was torn from his throat like a prayer. Because you still have a chance at a real life, she whispered, pressing the detonator into his palm. And because I love you enough to set you free? As darkness crept in around the edges of her vision, Gabriella heard the distant sound of sirens, and Ethan's voice calling her name. But louder than all of that was the steady beeping that had just begun somewhere in the walls of the building. Her heartbeat transmitted to every explosive device Ethan had planted, and it was slowing down. Ethan's hands pressed against the wound, his expensive shirt turning crimson as he tried desperately to stem the bleeding. No, 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 Gabriella, stay with me, please. Her eyes were growing dim, but she managed to focus on his face one last time. The medical kit, she whispered. Behind the mirror, emergency supplies. Ethan didn't question how she knew about hidden supplies in a hotel bathroom. He just moved, ripping the mirror from the wall to reveal a small cache of medical equipment. His hand shook as he grabbed gauze and pressure bandages, his business training suddenly worthless in the face of real life and death. "Talk to me," he commanded, working frantically to slow the bleeding. "Tell me why you really came here tonight." Gabriella's laugh was weak but genuine. "Would you believe me if I said it was fate? Try me. I was supposed to kill you." The confession came out in barely a whisper. "Carmen gave me a choice, your life or mine. But when you offered me that deal, when you looked at me like I was worth saving," she coughed, specks of blood staining her lips, "I chose you instead." The bleeding was slowing, but Ethan could see she was losing too much blood too fast. The distance, the beeping, was growing more erratic, matching her failing heartbeat. They had maybe 5 minutes before the building came down around them. "The bioscanner," he said suddenly. "Where is it?" "Bathroom vent," Gabriella managed. "I installed it while you were changing clothes." Ethan looked up at the air vent above them and understood. She had been planning this from the beginning, ready to sacrifice herself to ensure neither of them could be used as weapons ever again. "You're not dying tonight," he said fiercely, scooping her up in his arms. "I won't let you." He carried her out of the bathroom and down the emergency stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time while trying not to jostle her injured body. The building was mostly empty now, the evacuation nearly complete, but he could hear voices echoing from below. Carmen's people, waiting in the parking garage, just as Gabriella had predicted. Service elevator. Gabriella breathed against his neck. Roof access. The service elevator was barely big enough for both of them, but it carried them up to the hotels. Roof in agonizing seconds. The night air was cold against their faces, the city lights spreading out below them like fallen stars. "Helicopter," Ethan said, spotting the aircraft waiting on the landing pad. "I called for extraction when you pulled the fire alarm." "Smart man," Gabriella whispered, her voice growing fainter. He carried her to the helicopter, shouting instructions to the pilot over the rotor noise. As they lifted off, Ethan looked down to see Carmen's people swarming out of the building, finally realizing their trap had become their tomb. "Hospital," Ethan commanded the pilot. "Now," but Gabriella's hand found his, squeezing with the last of her strength. "No hospitals. They'll find us there." "Then where?" "Private clinic. Dr. Martinez on the south side. He owes my family favors." The flight across the city felt like hours, but it was barely minutes before they touched down on another rooftop. Dr. Martinez was waiting for them, his team already prepped for emergency surgery. "How long do we have?" the doctor asked as they rushed Gabriella into the operating room. Ethan looked at his watch, calculating. 4 minutes before the building goes down? Maybe less. Dr. Martinez nodded grimly and began barking orders to his team. "Get me 2 units of O-negative and prep for immediate surgery, and someone kill that damn beeping." It was only then that Ethan realized the sound was coming from a small device clipped to Gabriella's dress. Her backup biomonitor still transmitting her vital signs to the explosives. "Can you disable it?" he asked. "Not without stopping her heart," the doctor replied grimly. "And if I do that?" The building exploded. Even from 15 miles away, they could see the flash light up the night sky, could feel the tremor run through the ground beneath them. The Meridian Hotel collapsed in on itself like a house of cards, taking Carmen, Delgado, and her entire organization with it. And in the operating room, the beeping finally stopped. "I've got a pulse," Dr. Martinez announced, his hand steady as a... He worked to repair the damage Gabriella had inflicted on herself, weak but steady. Ethan sank into a chair beside the operating table, his legs finally giving out. "Is she going to make it?" "Ask me in 6 hours," the doctor replied without looking up. "But she's a fighter, must run in the family." Dawn was breaking over the city when Gabriella finally opened her eyes. She was in a private room, sunlight streaming through bulletproof windows, and Ethan was asleep in the chair beside her bed. He looked younger in sleep, the hard edges of constant vigilance softened by exhaustion. She whispered, and his eyes snapped open immediately. Hey yourself. He moved to the bed, taking her hand in both of his. How do you feel? Like I got stabbed in the chest, she said wryly. How's the city? Mourning the tragic loss of the Meridian Hotel to a gas explosion, Ethan replied. The official story is that it was an accident. No one's looking too hard for survivors. Gabriella nodded, understanding. And us. Officially dead. I had the pilot file a report that we went down in the harbor trying to escape the blast. His thumb traced over her knuckles. Unofficially? We're whoever we want to be now. Free, he confirmed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun rise over a city that thought they were dead. Finally, Gabriella spoke again. I need to tell you something. Oh. About why I really stabbed myself. Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. I know why. To save me. No, she said quietly. I mean, yes, but not just that. The bioscanner wasn't just monitoring my heartbeat. It was monitoring my brain activity, my stress responses, everything. If Carmen had taken me alive, if she had tortured the truth out of me, she met his eyes. I couldn't let her learn about your sister, about what really drove you to plan all this. Understanding dawned in Ethan's eyes. You were protecting Emma's memory. I was protecting the part of you that still believed in justice instead of just revenge. Ethan was quiet for a long moment, processing the depth of her sacrifice. What happens now? Gabriella smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it reached all the way to her eyes. Now we disappear. New names, new lives, new chances. To be better than we were? Together, if you want, she said softly. Though I should warn you, I'm probably going to need months of physical therapy, and I'm told I'm a terrible patient. Ethan's answering smile was brilliant, transforming his face completely. Good thing I'm a patient man. Outside the window, the city was waking up to a world without Carmen Delgado, without the corrupt web of violence and betrayal that had trapped them both for so long. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was a kind of freedom neither of them had dared hope for. And in that quiet room, Gabriella Santos and Ethan Morrison officially ceased to exist. Two people who had found each other in the darkness began planning for a life in the light. 6 months later, in a small coastal town where no one asked questions about the past, Alina Martinez married David Chen in a simple ceremony on the beach. The bride wore white, the groom cried during the vows, and for once in their lives, both of them were exactly who they appeared to be, happy, free, alive. The end.